beautiful. And what I want to know is what is really good in your life today? I'm Kia, and this is another episode of the Female Veterans Podcast. Today, I have a really talented, beautiful, and interesting person with me. She's really smart and a lot of fun to talk to. So her name is Liza. She's an Army veteran. And well, I'm not going to spoil anything. We have a lot of really cool stuff to talk about. I can't wait for you to find out her story and how talented she is and the amazing organizations she's here promoting and she works with. So without further ado, welcome, Liza.
Thank you so much for having me, Kia.
Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you and connect with you. It always is such a joy to be with my veteran sisters. So tell me, what made you join the military?
So I think, just growing up, my parents really appreciated how much the military has done for them. They're both from the Philippines. My dad was a U.S. citizen through his mom. And so he got stationed in the Philippines where he met my mom. And so he was in the Navy. And then from there, she was able to get citizenship. And then they had me there. We moved when I was 3 months old. And then just growing up, I really, appreciated. I loved moving and traveling. We lived in Japan, Guam, Alaska. And then finally, he retired in Washington. But just growing up, they've always talked about how great the military was, all the benefits, especially with education, which they really instilled in me. And so doing ROTC program at Seattle U, that was just an easy decision.
Wow. So first of all, go Navy.
Oh, were you Navy?
Yes.
Okay.
And second of all, I live in Washington, so that's amazing too.
That's my home.
So what was boot camp like for you?
So we didn't do boot camp. We did have advanced camp our third year in college. And for that, you do the basics. You have to do squad sticks, roll around in the dirt, go camping or pitch a tent. And with that, is really, I did get sick, during the time there. And I called home and I broke down crying because, you're sick and vulnerable. And my mom's like, you can just quit and come home. But, I was so grateful that, with the ROTC program, they're paying for my scholarship. I did want to serve and give back to the military. So I was like, no, I'll tough it out. I got it. But boot camp, it wasn't bad. It was just 30 days. After you commission and graduate, you do go to officer basic course. And then that was down in Texas, in San Antonio. And I don't know if you've been, but San Antonio is a good time. Definitely.
I've heard that.
Yes. So that was fun. And, you just learn the basics on, counseling, how to be a leader and mentor. And so that went by pretty fast, about 2.5 months. But I mean, from there, oh my gosh, I went to Korea as my first duty station. And so that was a shell shock for sure. But I was just so close to my family, and that's the farthest away I've been from home. And gosh, I mean, I toughed it out, and it was supposed to be 1 year. I loved it so much, I extended for another year. So I obviously was able to adapt and had a good time there.
Wow, that's amazing, because so many people don't go to like a good base. Like there's good bases and there's not so good bases. And these days we've got one of those not so good bases all over the news media at Fort Hood. So it's always I was lucky. Now I went to one of the strictest bases in the Navy. I went to Great Lakes because their boot camp is there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the A and C school trainings are there as well. So it was a really strict base. Like there was no like underage drinking. Like some bases you can drink at 18. You know what I mean? There was none of that. There was, we were drug tested regularly, and they
Oh,
were like really, really strict about how everything had to be on that base. So not a lot of people choose that base to go to.
yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky in that it was a really great experience. There were lots of women. There was like, lots of people coming in and out because of the school. So you got to meet so many really interesting people from all over. It was extraordinarily diverse, and I had good leadership on that base too. So strict leadership, but good leadership. So I think originally there was a huge drug bust
Oh,
on the base.
wow.
Actually, that's a little T. This was the
Yeah.
90s. There was a huge
Uh-huh.
cocaine ring busted on the base, right?
Oh
And then
my
after that,
gosh.
the leadership changed, if I remember correctly, and it got
Mm-hmm.
stricter. It got
Yeah.
super strict on that base. So I was
Yeah.
there for that transition, and we felt it, but we acted out a little bit. But well, we rebelled against the strictness a little bit, but for the most part, I was lucky because it wasn't a toxic environment, and people certainly weren't going missing and ending up
Yeah.
dead for sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know. I mean, sometimes you need that strict leadership, especially if, things are happening. You need to lay down the law and, make sure things won't get worse. And, unfortunately, we know which base we're talking about. I wasn't there, and I'm glad that, they removed the commander in charge because obviously things weren't improving.
Yeah, well, definitely. We'll see what happens. Hopefully, our brothers and sisters in arms will be safer there because that's
Hmm.
our number one hope,
Yes,
right? So
absolutely.
tell me more about Korea. So you were ROTC, and oh,
Hmm.
let me back up.
Sure.
You were ROTC. Did you have a lot of people that you kept in touch with from that training, or did you guys all sort of go your separate ways?
I do keep in touch with a lot the ROTs, the other cadets, and a lot of them stayed. Actually, a lot of them got out, so there's just maybe a handful of us that stayed active duty. But I would say all my closest friends I've met through the military, and then a lot of my girlfriends are who I met in Korea. And so it's just awesome that, so many different backgrounds. You're talking about diversity, just the military has is so diverse, and I love that. And just just like our country with the diversity, it's just something to celebrate. And all my friends, I'm gonna get tearful because I haven't seen them in a while, but they are just amazing. They're doing great things, and I'm just so honored that I was able to meet them through the military and to keep in touch and have those strong bonds with them.
I feel you. I feel you. It is such a blessing when we can make those connections. I'm still friends with pretty much everybody that I kept in touch with. That was my inner circle, and a few people that I just knew from the base that at least
Hmm.
through Facebook,
Yeah.
we're friends, or Instagram, we're friends that way.
Hmm.
So I love that. Those connections is like I said, you can't, unless you experienced it, you can't really understand it. Those bonds,
Hmm.
right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, just like even talking or meeting, you find out someone's another veteran. I'm just meeting you for the first time. I feel like, we have a connection and I know you already, and it's just crazy. Even though you're Navy and I was Army, you get that bond that, like you said, if you haven't served, you don't really understand. And so I think that's just
Absolutely.
awesome.
Absolutely agree. Like there's what I like to call like that special bond. It doesn't matter what branch you served in,
Hmm.
what year you served in. If you're like I'm a veteran, male or
Uh-huh.
female, really, there's
Hmm.
just that connection, and it's typically immediate like coolness.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that. So tell me more about your military experience. What's active duty like for you?
Active duty, gosh, looking back, it's like, wow, I did 11 years in that time just flew by. I actually, you mentioned, not so great stations, but I was really blessed to have gone to places that, I wanted, and especially with, loving to travel. I was in Korea for 2 years. And then there I worked at a hospital as a medical surgical nurse, and then I later transitioned to OB and with labor and delivery. And after 2 years in Korea, I went to Tripler out in Honolulu, Hawaii. So I was there for 3 years, and then I got my specialty course. I completed that in labor and delivery. So I did that for 3 years. And then I applied for physician assistant school through the military, through their inter-service physician assistant program. And I already decided, like, okay, if I don't get in, I'm just gonna get out. I did my 4 years. I'll go home back to Washington and work as a nurse. But then I got in, so I was like, okay, I guess I'm still in for a couple more years. And so I did, the first year is down at the AMED Center of School in San Antonio. And then my second year, the residency portion was here in Colorado, which I'm actually at now. And so after that, my next duty station as a PA was in Wiesbaden, Germany. So I was there for a couple of months. The unit I was going to, I knew we were deploying, which, I wanted to deploy and, get that experience. And then going in as a PA, you already know that you're going to, deploy a lot. You're there, in a role one situation where, casualties will go to you first. So you're prepared for that. And so I already knew, and I, felt that I wanted to have that experience. But I did deploy to Afghanistan from Germany, and then we were there for 11 months. And then after that, I moved back to Washington, where I did 2 more years. And then after I had my daughter, it was a hard decision, but I decided to get out just so I can have more stability for her. And, I knew staying in, I would have deployed more often. And I just wanted to, change the role and, focus on being a mom.
I definitely can understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to back up a little bit.
Sure.
And I want to ask you about Afghanistan, because you deployed and you received casualties first. And I was a hospital corpsman, and there was a time that I was considering going to field med. I ultimately ended up in the pharmacy, but I didn't go. But I will never forget some of the training that I had when I was considering going. Right. So tell me, what was it like for you in Afghanistan? I also served during peacetime. So I am actually a combat veteran, but I came in at the end of Desert Storm. So I didn't deploy, right? It was actually wrapping up. But I would love to know more about your experience deployed to Afghanistan, what it was like for you.
Yeah, and so we were in Kabul, and I was actually at the headquarters, ISAF. It was like a small base with NATO there. So that was cool because I got to meet a lot of, foreign military, which, I'm still friends with on Facebook, that we follow each other. But that experience, it was definitely, it was an eye-opener to, you appreciate the things you have. Often we would go out to, I was able to go visit some orphanages there. And so, even just with the little things with traveling, even that's, dangerous, can be a dangerous situation. And so, traveling to and from different bases, you just appreciate, you miss home, and then appreciate, how easy it is. And of course, first world problems. But I think just being in another country, and it just makes you put into perspective what's so important, and also, the good things that we're trying to accomplish there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Did you see a lot of action out there?
Yeah, luckily I didn't. Again, we were at the headquarters. The closest thing that happened was there was an IED that exploded near the base, and then we had to react. We did prepare for mass casualties. We had, different exercises, every month to just be prepared. So we were prepared to receive some, but our medics, and actually I was with the Navy mostly. There was 2 corpsmen with me, but they went out to, go assess the situation. And then unfortunately, there were two individuals, Afghans, that did not survive it. But luckily, no one else got injured. And so that was the biggest thing as far as action and trauma that I experienced there. So I was fortunate.
Yeah, for sure. It's just never gets any easier, and this has been going on for so long
Mm-hmm.
that we have so many of our brothers and sisters that are in situations like that or
Mm-hmm.
worse that they're dealing with, and then they come home and
Mm-hmm.
have to work through the trauma of the experience, because I think deploying is stressful on
Yeah.
so many levels. Like, even what you said, traveling is
Mm-hmm.
just a dangerous situation, right? If you're never in that experience, if you don't deploy, and you never, that becomes a fear that you suddenly become aware of. Like,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly I'm just going from one base to the next, but I'm in danger that whole way. Did
Mm-hmm.
that affect you?
I think, you know, I think I was able to, adapt afterwards. I mean, during the time when we're traveling, of course, I'm like on edge. My heart's racing. It's like, oh, we're getting too close to this car on the side, or, why are we stopping so long? At that time, of course, I was so anxious, and I kind of think it's silly because the hospital, we stayed in our hospital, and then often there are these loud. We're kind of near the entrance, and then these big trucks would come by, and then you start to think like, oh gosh, what if there's an ID in there, or if something happens. And then sometimes our hospital would just rumble and shake a little bit. But so, like, I can remember, and I still think back to that sometimes, but I don't think, I think it's silly just compared to what other people have gone through. But it did affect me to a point, but not as bad as other people. And definitely, you just gotta find ways to cope and get over it. But so I do feel lucky that you know it wasn't as bad as other people's experiences who are still struggling at times. But thankfully there are resources out there that hopefully they're using.
Amen to that. Because I'm all about finding resources to help you on your healing journey. And you know what? I think right now, a lot of us military, we are in our process of managing PTSD,
Mm-hmm.
and we can help other people now. We're in a unique position to help everybody else going through this COVID situation, because
Mm-hmm.
coming out of this, everyone's getting like sort of a collective trauma, as I
Uh-huh.
say.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are going to have PTSD from this,
Mm-hmm.
believe it or
Oh,
not, right?
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so we're in a unique position to serve again, and
Mm-hmm.
to help
There
other
you go.
people to work through, you have PTSD, these are
Mm-hmm.
the symptoms you're having, that's
Yeah.
PTSD, you didn't know
Yeah.
that, okay, this is some things that could help you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here we go again, right? We're in a very,
Yeah.
very unique position at this time, having experienced the things that we've experienced.
Yeah.
So I have another question for you
Mm-hmm.
about your military experience. I would love to know, what is your favorite military story from your time in?
My favorite military story. It'd probably be deploying to Afghanistan, where we went to an orphanage where it was all females, and just walking in, we came to deliver some medical supplies, and then just the look on their face, and they just looked like they were in awe. These little girls that it seems like they looked up to you, and just that just makes it so real, why you're there, and just reminds you of what you're doing, and why. I mean, I joined the medical field because I wanted to help others, and that just made me feel good, and just remember why I'm doing this.
Oh my gosh. That is so sweet. I can just imagine it as you were saying, just like the little faces and the little girls and seeing women in uniform come in with supplies and oh
Um,
my gosh, that must have been really an incredible experience.
oh yes, and I was fortunate to have a picture of that, and so that one, it's in my album on Facebook, and I love when it pops up on my memories because it just just makes things solidifies like why I'm here, what I'm doing, and just makes everything worth it.
Oh, that's amazing. And so I can't ask you what your favorite story is without
Mhm.
asking you what you felt your biggest obstacle was while serving.
Yeah, well, I want to say while serving, it was actually, I would say, probably the biggest obstacle was during ROTC and our advanced camp. I talked about, we do squad stakes where we're assigned to be like the squad leader and we're given a mission. And, you have all these guys who are like gung ho and want to be infantry. So they're like, looking down at you, like you don't know what you're doing. And then, so the better you perform at advanced camp, then the more likely that you're going to get your top selection for what branch you pick. As I mean, at least in Army ROTC. And then a lot of the guys are like, "Oh, you're a nurse. You already know what you're gonna do, so this doesn't really count." And it's just like, hey, I know what I'm doing. I studied the same stuff you did. I know how to be a leader. I can lead us through this mission and get it accomplished. And it just reminds me of how far we've come with, women serving in combat now. And then the two females who completed Ranger School. And then there's the National Guard woman who completed Special Forces training. So it's just like in your face. Women can do it too. And so, unfortunately, there still is a lot, it's a male dominant culture, but, I think we're leading the way. Women are the fastest growing veterans in the military population. And then just the numbers as far as women serving are increasing. So that's great.
Absolutely. I think it's really important, a lot of the things that you said, because we do face a lot of misogyny. I mean, throughout
Mhm.
the history of all
Oh,
time of women serving,
yeah. Hmm.
most definitely in the United States military, I'm sure all around the world.
Hmm.
And the things that we sort of have to deal with to prove ourselves. I know every single woman veteran listening identifies with having to show the guys that you're not only just as good as them, but even better a lot
Uh-huh.
of times, right?
That's right.
So, so it's part of sort of our experience. That's part of being in. And although it may not be fair, it is what it is. And the funny thing about it is, I don't know one woman that I have spoken to so far in my life that has ever said, "Yeah, I couldn't do it."
Oh, yeah,
I
no.
couldn't show them that I was better than them. Not one
Oh,
woman has ever said,
oh.
"Yeah, I felt like I had to prove myself to the guys, but I
Mhm.
failed." Not one
Oh, yeah.
woman.
Oh,
So,
no, we're strong. We got this.
for real
Well, it's
though.
funny. It's funny because even so, last night my husband and I, yesterday was POW Missing in Action Recognition Day, and
Yes.
so we went to a ceremony over at one of the local VFWs, and then we were sitting down eating after the ceremony, and then the guys were, we were all talking, and then they asked my husband like, "Oh, so where did you serve? What do you do?" And then as when they were talking, I was like, okay, so they'll ask me next. But then I kind of had a feeling like I bet they're not going to ask me, were you in, or I'm sure they just thought I was the dependent wife. And I was right. And they, totally after, he answered, they went to talk about something else. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I'm an 11-year Army veteran too. And so they're like, oh, okay. So I was just like, oh, it didn't hasn't really changed, but hopefully it's going to continue to progress for the better.
You know it well. You know why? Because we're
Mhm.
doing stuff like this.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I'm so
Right?
excited to find this podcast, and I'm so blessed and happy that you have me on here.
Oh, I'm thrilled that you wanted to be on here. I actually am always thrilled when someone, it never gets old, believe me, when someone says, hey, I want to be on the Female Veterans Podcast. And I'm
Uh-huh.
just always honored. I'm always thrilled. I'm always thrilled when people listen to it and they tell me they've heard it. It's
Oh,
just still
awesome.
mind blowing for me, even after a year. And I'm going to just keep doing them and keep kicking down doors, because the whole point is to show the world that we're here, that we
Yeah.
have stories, and that our
Hmm.
stories matter. And you better recognize.
Yes, yes.
So, okay, so we talked about your military experience a lot. Thank you for sharing
Hmm.
those amazing stories. But I know you said that you got out because you had your daughter and you wanted to give her some stability, which as moms, we will sacrifice a career and a
Hmm.
heartbeat for a baby.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, what was your transition out of the military like?
Yeah, my transition, it wasn't too difficult. I was able, because being, in the medical field, as a PA, I was able to find a job pretty easily. I had one lined up before getting out, and I was kind of surprised, but they actually loved that I was in the military, because they found that military, those with military experience were very dependable, just loyal. They, knew their stuff, don't mess around. And so I was able to transit. I had a fairly easy transition out. It was, kind of a shell shock for a little bit, because, you're so used to doing the same thing for how many years with, so you get up, do sick call, and then, you see your patients, you go to meetings, and then all of a sudden you're in civilian life, and just I was working like 3 days a week, and it's like, what do I do with the rest of my time?
I can just imagine. My
Hmm.
goodness. What do you
Uh-huh.
think was the biggest struggle other than figuring out what to do with your time?
I think the biggest struggle, and what I still miss to this day, of course, is the camaraderie that you get with, everyone you work with. I mean, especially the soldiers, and as a PA, you work with a lot of medics, and just being able to mentor them and train them, and just see their progress. As a PA, I don't really have no one under me, and to help like guide and want to see progress. And so I saw that I did that a lot with the medics I worked with, with trying to get them into PA school or further their education. And so that I definitely missed. And then even my friends that are still in from ROTC, with them getting promoted and just all the great things that they're doing. So I was telling my husband just last week, I was just like, oh, I miss it. And so that gets tough sometimes, but of course, being a mama bear and your children, I don't regret anything. But of course, I miss the military.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, definitely. So I'm a little bit different. I could not wait to get out. I wasn't I wasn't gonna be a career girl.
Hmm.
It wasn't in my plan. I wanted to go to college. And in
Uh-huh.
fact, I would have preferred to have like a university experience and in some small
Oh yeah.
town university or whatever, but it just wasn't in the cards for me. And so I went off to the Navy to the Montgomery GI Bill was relatively new,
Hmm.
and and I wanted to go to school, so I thought this is how I'm going to get money to go to college.
Hmm.
And my mom was very much about the military being a firm foundation to start your life with, and she was right.
Oh
So,
good. Hmm.
but from the time I went in and I got through those gates at boot camp, I knew that at the end of my 5 years, my 3 years in active reserve, that I was going to be done, and that was going to be it, and I was going to go to college, and that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah. Like
In a way.
check,
So
check, and check.
yes. But the thing about it is when I got out, and I will tell you, it was like for me, my day of getting out, I got a letter of appreciation from the command for the
Hmm.
work I did in the pharmacy. They threw me a party in the pharmacy. It was amazing. It was kind of like a graduation day in a
Hmm.
way. And I
Hmm.
was so happy because I really felt that, like, when you are, most people don't know what it feels like to be property, but we do, because
Oh
we're
yes.
property of the United States government, and that really had an effect on on me, sort of belonging to the man, right? So when I got out of, like, literally belonging to the man, but
Yeah.
I got out and I was like so happy. I was like, yes, I'm in control of my own life again. I'm about to do
Mhm.
my thing. It's gonna be amazing. And do you know what?
What?
I so missed it.
Oh.
I would miss my friends. When I
Oh.
went to go work in corporate,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what is this? Who are
Yeah.
these people? Not to say, like, not all corporations are bad, but it was a very different scene in the 90s than it is
Mm-hmm.
now. Now they got nap pods and cool things going
Yeah.
on
Oh.
in corporations, but back then it was a lot different. And anyway, now or then, it does not have that same camaraderie, that same
Right.
brother and sister, like we're all fighting for the same mission. A lot of times you go
Mhm.
to these corporations and it's dog eat dog, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
People are treacherous out there, right? It's not the same. And I mean, there's good and bad people everywhere, but it's not the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just isn't. And so what I found was within 2 years of getting out, that I was so shocked. No one was more shocked than me of how much I missed being in.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I hear that a lot from like my other friends who have gotten out and, into like the quote real world, but they're just like, oh my gosh, no one has the same, what's the word? Just drive or, they camaraderie and just are not as motivated, I guess. They find that frustrating, actually. Even my husband now, he's like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. Like, once he retires, he's like, I don't know, I'm going to handle that.
He's gonna have to start his own business.
I know.
Which is what a lot of veterans end up doing,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they hire veterans.
Yeah.
Or the other thing is, which I did, was I started helping veterans, and I didn't even, if I had a thought, I had no concept of like joining an organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back
Mm-hmm.
then, I think somewhere like way later, like 10 years maybe after I got out of the military, I joined the American Legion for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like all older men. So it still
Uh-huh.
wasn't quite right. Like it fulfilled a need for a little bit, but it still wasn't quite right. And
Right.
so until now, like this last year, I've been more affiliated with organizations, but before I call it a grassroots campaign. I was just
Mm-hmm.
me coming across veterans and helping them out. Oh, you don't know how to like do this or do that or get your
Mm-hmm.
benefits or whatever, or so it's just always been a passion of mine, and that's actually what really helped me to heal, was
Mm-hmm.
to give back to my veteran community in whatever way that I could, you know. So, and I find that the truth with a lot of veterans,
Mm-hmm.
and you actually give back. So let's talk about how you came upon giving back to the veteran community.
Oh, yeah. So, in the past couple months, so I am currently a finalist for Miss Veteran America, and their main beneficiary is Final Salute Inc., which helps our homeless women veterans, which, honestly, I didn't even think was such a big issue. You see on the streets, it's typically a male holding up a sign saying they're veterans, but women veterans are the fastest growing demographic in the homeless population. And
Yes.
so, because they serve too, they sacrifice so much. This program, Final Salute Inc., this organization was developed by Army veteran Jazz Booth, who, at one time was unemployed and homeless. And the only resource that they told her to use was, the state resource with welfare. And she's like, how is there no organization to help us women veterans after everything we've done? So, she changed that. And so she has this great nonprofit, which has three main programs to help give back. And just through this competition with Miss Veteran America, the past couple months, the goal is to advocate for our female veterans. They are the invisible homeless, because a lot of people, aren't aware of this issue, and, they're underestimated. On any given day, there's an estimated 55,000 homeless women veterans, and 70% are single moms. And, you and me know how important it is to be a mom and just, to take care of your children. And it's just amazing that this organization not only helps the women veterans, but their children as well. And so I've just been trying to fundraise, advocate for them, at the VFWs, doing Facebook Lives with some of the other finalists, going on to awesome podcasts like yours, and just trying to spread more awareness and, let our female veterans know that they're not forgotten, and, we see you and we hear you and we are here for you.
Yes. I mean, 1,000%. So homelessness amongst female veterans is a hot button issue for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've said this on the show before, but one of the reasons why this podcast exists is because I read an article about female veteran homelessness being on the rise. And so my business mentor and I were in Los Angeles and we were talking about it. And she was like, she's so active. She's this go get 'em kind of girl. And she was like, let us go help some female veterans today, right now. Where can we go? And I was like, right now? And she's like, yeah, let's go get some food. Pass me out, because I was like on a tangent about female veteran homelessness. And she was like, we got to do something right now. Yeah. So we went. Awesome. So we ended up calling the vet center. And we got a meeting with the outreach coordinator, Sharon. She's lovely, from the Culver City Vet Center. And she gave us a meeting with her and the next day, and she told me something that I will never forget. She told me this. She said, it's really nice that you want to go pass out food, because we're like, where can we go? Can you tell us where? Are there like enclaves of women veterans where they're all together, where we could just go, And she was like, if you really want to help these female veterans, she's like, it's really nice, but the perception of the veteran is still a man. And she's like, so if you want to help them, give them a voice. Let the public know that there are women veterans out here. She said, because when we go to do our outreach work, we don't have shoes and coats and boots for them. They have to take what's left after the men. And girl, let me tell you what, I about broke down. Because I don't believe that anybody that served their country should deploy and then come home and not at least have their basic needs met.
Yeah.
How can you tell me in a city big as Los Angeles with a homelessness problem the way that they do, that no one's helping women veterans? No one thinks of women veterans? So, I mean, I would say about 4 months later, the Female Veterans Podcast was born.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, you're doing great work. But no, like you said, a lot of the shelters are, focused or geared towards men. And, most of these women who are homeless, they don't feel comfortable or safe in that environment. And a lot of shelters, actually, there's age restrictions for your children. So you would, you can go in the shelter, but your kids can't. And so what mom would leave their kid like that? That's why they're unaccounted for and underestimated. And so we just need to keep advocating, keep doing great things like you're doing.
Like you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So tell me more about the pageant.
Yeah, so they don't like the word pageant just because it's so much more than that. They prefer competition. And with the competition, so it's narrowed down. Now we have 25 finalists. There are some things, there's like an evening gown and a talent portion, but just with the competition, there's a push-up competition. There's advocacy with, how much we're doing to advocate for our homeless female veterans. And then as well as the final interview, we have to go over military history, specifically women in military history. And so it's just so much more than a pageant. And, the past couple months, we've all been trying to raise funding as well as awareness for our homeless female veterans. So, even though it is a competition amongst this 25 finalists, we're all for the same cause, one goal. And, regardless of how far I get in the competition, this is a nonprofit that I believe in and that I will continue to support.
That's amazing. And you're right. That sounds like a lot more than a pageant. Push-ups?
I know. I was like, oh, I haven't done 2 minutes of push-ups since 2015.
Really, but that is that sounds like a competition that, you
Mhm.
know, a female veteran could get behind.
Uh-huh. Yes.
So definitely for spreading awareness for homelessness amongst our female veterans, because you know the suicide rate is elevating too. It's raising so
Mhm.
fast
Mhm.
that it's unbelievable. And when we have our sisters in their most vulnerable state, of course, then you're going to see the suicide rate rise as well. So
Mhm.
I applaud you, and I
Oh.
applaud everything that you and the finalists are doing to bring awareness to
Mhm.
our homeless female veteran sisters and to help to get them off the streets, because I mean this is the kind of work that needs to happen,
Yes.
and it's so necessary.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
So
thank you. I appreciate that.
so I just have a couple of more questions for you.
Sure. Mhm.
Now tell me please, if I were to ask you for some advice
Mhm.
for female veterans coming up behind you, what would
Mhm.
that be?
I think, especially with what I've learned this past year, just, this past year with COVID and, just makes you appreciate what you have and just, and this competition with these other finalists, it's, even though we're competing, it's important to just empower one another, especially our women veterans. In the nurse corps, you hear about, nurses eating their young, and it's like it shouldn't be that way. You need to help each other thrive and just to empower us, inspire us to build our self-esteem. And I think that's just so important, especially with the younger soldiers, both male and female. That's going to help them stand up for what they believe in, to call out what's right or wrong, especially with, the military sexual trauma going on. It's going to be great if the I Am Vanessa Guillen bill passes, because
Yes.
then a third party is going to be able to um, do the investigation without the soldier or service member, feeling any repercussion. And so, I mean, and even my kids, I just want them to be able to stand up for what they believe in, do what's right, and then, of course, help others. And so I just hope that they see that, and that, that's my advice for others too. Don't worry so much about competing with another, or don't put other people down. You're going to have to help bring them up and support everyone.
Well, I love that advice. It's so necessary to, I mean, for example, what you said about the competition that you have with these other 25 finalists to win this title, like
Mhm.
supporting each other and helping each other along the way, that's really beautiful. You don't see that very often, you know, and it's important to spread the message that it's not necessary to tear people down. Just help
Exactly.
build each other up, and then we all rise up, right?
Yes.
So that's amazing. Such great advice. Thank you so much for it. And
Hmm.
so now tell us, when will we find out the results of the competition?
Okay, so it's definitely coming up. October 9th is our final interview. And then October 11th is the night of the competition. And it's actually a virtual platform this year because of COVID. We
Mm-hmm.
were all supposed to meet down in Orlando. And so they're doing it virtually. People are going to be able to tune in. So that's the blessing where more people can watch it live and see what happens. And so October 11th is the final date. This is the ninth annual Miss Veteran America competition. And so it's exciting and, of course, nerve wracking at the same time. But yeah, it's awesome. It's been such a great experience. I mean, especially just with reaching out to other people. It is difficult with COVID these days, with a lot of events being canceled and, not being able to go to certain places, but just spreading awareness and talking to people, especially other veterans you know, who also didn't know how big of an issue this was. And so it's just great. And I'm so excited. My family's so supportive and I love them for that.
That's amazing. They
Mhm.
must be so proud of you.
Oh, I hope so.
Well, I'm proud of you for
Oh,
sure.
thank you, Kia. You're awesome.
And I'm so glad that you were able to come and spend time and share your story and
Mhm.
speak openly and candidly about female veteran homelessness and what you're doing to help remedy that problem.
Mhm.
It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
And so, will you tell us where we can find you, and if we can donate, where do we go to do that?
Oh, yes, that'd be awesome. So it's great because $25 is all it takes to provide 1 day of housing, counseling, food, shelter, on-site case management, and even childcare. But every bit counts, a dollar or whatever you can donate, or even just spread the word is much appreciated. You can find me on Facebook. My Facebook page is Lisa G for MVA 2020, or on Twitter, it's at G4 Liza, Liza.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And so we could go to your Facebook if we want to donate.
Yep, absolutely. The donation button's pinned at the top.
Excellent. Well, I just want to thank you again for sharing your story and for enlightening us even more about female veteran homelessness and just being amazing and awesome and just everything that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you again for having me. You're amazing, and I can't wait. I want to see you for the competition next year.
I don't know about that, but maybe, who knows? You never know. You never know. Stranger things have happened. I mean, we're in
Yes,
the era of COVID. So
it's a crazy year.
anything anything can happen. I don't know
Exactly.
what I'll be doing in 2021, but I'm not ruling anything out at this
Yeah.
point. So again, my dear, thank you so much for being on the Female Veterans Podcast. You're so appreciated.
Oh, thank
And with that, we're going to wrap this up. I want to say thank you to everyone who continues to support my show. And I want to tell you that I have just joined the board of a not for profit called Hope for Veterans. And if you want to find out more about it, check out my Female Veterans Podcast Instagram page. I will be posting more information about where you can go to donate to that organization. And if you are a female veteran who needs help and you live in Florida, this organization works particularly for female veterans in Florida. But if you want to donate, you can donate from anywhere around the country to help these female veterans out. And it's such a great organization. They do such good work for female veterans, and they're growing. And I'm so honored to have been asked to be on the board. So please check that out if you have time for that. And I love you guys and I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. I'll talk to you next time.